guests today are Sean Snaith, and Stuart Fullerton. We join their conversation in the faculty lounge.
No, it is. Originally, it was somewhere closer to the Pacific. It was a little more true to its name. Yeah, a lot. I think there's a lot of the old buildings still there. They're renovating some of them.
My memory is it was a very pretty little campus.
It had a Eastern University kind of feel to it. It was. When you were on the campus, it was hard to tell you were in California. I mean, just by the architecture and
so what took you to Florida then? What brought you to Orlando?
It was the opportunity to take over the Institute for Economic Competitiveness, which is in the business
That's something I don't know anything about. I come onto campus and I managed to isolate myself into my little hole in the wall down there, and I have not a clue what some of these things are. And talking with Jerry Klein, who of course is responsible for both of us being here today.
We'll get him.
Absolutely, I'm planning already. He was telling me about some of the things that they're doing. No idea what this. I don't know what the institute is.
Yeah, the Institute for Economic Competitiveness, I think, was formed about 5 years ago, and originally
College of Business.
It's in the College of Business,
okay.
Housed in the College of Business. What it's done historically is done some analysis and studies. What I've started, and I came here in August of last year, is a quarterly forecasting program. So we put out economic forecasts each quarter. Okay. We do a forecast of the U.S. economy, a forecast of the state of Florida's economy, and then forecasts for 12 metro areas throughout the state. And we started that last fall.
What are the 12 metro areas? Tampa, St. Pete, Miami, Orlando, Tallahassee, Orlando,
Gainesville, Daytona.
Oh, Daytona. Okay, sure.
Naples.
Wouldn't have thought of that, but sure. Okay.
Pensacola.
Pensacola.
We tried to,
right.
You know, there is a little, I've already had some complaints about certain metros not being included, complaints that emanated from those metros, and I always tell them, well, it's, you know, all it takes is more time and money, so just let me know and we can add them on. But yeah, it's a work in progress. It's
sure,
unfortunately,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, it takes resources. And why don't you tell me what you do on campus, because
I hide.
Yeah.
I'm a non-entity on the campus, and I'm associated with something known as the bug closet over in the biology building, which is actually an insect research collection, which is why I wear my T-shirt. One of my former students brought this back from Chicago, where they're having an outbreak of the periodic cicada, and he and his bride and 2 kids were up visiting, and he came back and said, I needed to have this. They got it at the field museum. No, they didn't. They got it at the Arboretum up there, the Morrison Arboretum, I think it was.
When you say outbreak, are they troublesome insects or just noisy?
No. This is just a research collection. It started from an interest of mine from back in Modesto before I got glasses and we discovered I couldn't see. I used to look at insects because you can see them up close when you're avoiding being hit by volleyballs, baseballs, and other things that kids throw. And I just, I've been doing insect stuff all of my life, and I've had the opportunity and pleasure of building this research collection there for the University of Central Florida. Originally from a question I asked a chap who's since retired, David Vickers, who I think is still associated with the university doing something someplace. I can't envision him ever dying. Although I think, no. Hi, David, if you're out there. And I asked him one day, years and years ago, do you have a list of the insects found on campus? He said, no, but you can go to Gainesville and get them out of the computer. And I believed him, and I should have known better. And so I got started collecting. We aren't done, we won't be done, but it's just one of those things. The nice thing about it is it involves a lot of students. And the whole thrust of it is to provide things for students to work with, I think. I get a great deal of enjoyment out of it. The university would like to hope that I would vanish and go someplace. And
why, you bug them? No
I bug them, literally.
Okay. Well, that's the problem with entomology, guys. So when did it start? When did the closet start?
It's
more than a closet now, I assume.
Well, yeah. We still have basically the closet with a lot of other room now. The collection started roughly, I think, back about 1972 or possibly even earlier, when one of the former deans of the College of what was then College of Sciences, Sheridan was his name, was teaching entomology, and they saved a few insects from their classes. And then over the years, not much happened. In about 1976, I was on the campus as a student, way late in life, and wanted to learn about bugs, quote, professionally, and wanted to take the course that they offered every 2 years. And of course, for the 2 years I was there, it wasn't offered. So I got to collecting anyway and started building a collection, and then went off to do other things. And after I ran out of matches from setting the world on fire late in life, I was looking for something to do and wandered back onto the campus and was doing some volunteer work with a chap by the name of Hank Whittier in the old Arboretum. We've got a whole fancy new Arboretum that's in the process now of being reconstructed.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
The chap who's running it is doing a wonderful job. I can't walk out there and see it anymore because my ability to walk is back to parking where we were today. I get there at 6 in the morning to get a parking spot next to the building.
Just to be safe.
Yeah. I'll ask you about the economic factors on that in a minute and what we can do about that one.
Well, there's a mystery, as we were talking before we came on camera, that no matter where the university is located, there's never enough parking. Whether it's in the heart of a major city or out in the middle of nowhere.
What do they do about parking in the University of Pacific?
They limit the number
This could
of
become known as the parking show.
Well, hey, why not? Yeah.
Jerry's gotten 2 parkers here, parked.
Well, wait till we start talking about striping of parking lots. That's really where it gets interesting. They restrict the students, I think, pretty much, and it's more of a residential. They have parking that's not conducive to zipping in and out of campus. It's kind of way off on one side. So if you drive up from home for the semester, your car can sit there, and if you need it for something, but your day-to-day life doesn't necessitate you hopping in a car to get to campus. So, and I think the university will kind of, by the number of parking facilities that's put up, but also putting more residential units on campus will start to whittle away.
Well, it certainly has changed from when I remember when I met it first, in 1976, and I think the only housing they had on campus then were some 2-story apartments over to the south side of the administration. I guess it's the south side of the administration building. I think those buildings are still there, and then for years they were only going to have 4-story things, and now they have those things that I like to call squats, but they like to call them towers, the new parking or new housing facilities that look like they're 7 or 8 stories. They were advertising one day that Tower 2 is now renting, and I called somebody on campus. I said, how can you call it a tower? I said, by definition, a tower is taller than it is wide or long, and these things are definitely wider and longer than they are tall. But squat was not going to sell.
Yeah, so the marketing, I can see the marketing folks maybe having a problem with that.
Well, that's all in your bag of beans.
What's that? Marketing? Yeah, sort of, kind of. I just stay in my hovel too. Numbers are more my thing. They're friendlier than people, so I like to.
Let me ask you the question that was once asked to J.P. Morgan: how much is enough?
There's never enough. That's
what he said. I think his was just a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Well, that's about the one thing I have in common with J.P. Morgan. Then I suppose.
It may have been Rockefeller. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I'm sure we'll all get nasty phone calls about this thing here.
When you say you're working with students, is it mainly you're out in the field with them, or are you doing classroom instruction?
It was kind of a funny thing. When I got back to looking at insects along about 1990, I was doing some volunteer work there, and every now and then a student would wander through and want to learn about taxonomy, which is what I do, the identification of insects. And there wasn't anybody to teach the course, but David Vickers was the department chair at that time, and we kind of worked out an independent study where I took them and we had a couple of scopes at my house, and they worked out of the back of my house and were learning things. And then about 1993, I was invited to go up to Westfield, Massachusetts to spend the summer teaching a course in entomology up there to some students, and came back, and Dr. Vickers announced that we were going to offer entomology. So we did, and we offered it for 12 years in a row. And I did the labs as a volunteer and did them as a taxonomy unit. And so from this way, I was able to work with just an awful lot of wonderful students, many of whom developed interest in entomology. unlike what had ever happened there at the University of Central Florida, the theory there was is if you want to learn bugs, go to Gainesville, where they've got 2 whole buildings and a whole department of entomology and more people than you can, wave a fan at.
Right.
But I've been blessed with having students who have returned to do volunteer work. I've been blessed with having students that if I could find $1 or $2 to pay them, were willing to do some work. And several of them went on and did master's degrees and PhD's degrees at other universities in entomology.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 or 3 or 4 of them that have worked on master's degrees in biology, but the emphasis or their study area has been insects. And so they work with me in the bug closet. And at this precise moment, today, and this is dating us like ever because tomorrow it may all fall apart, but today I have 5 people that are working in there for various periods of times, 3 undergraduates, 1 graduate student, and 1 who graduated a year ago but is teaching biology here in Florida. And she's not a bug closet person, but she's interested and she's working with us. And she'll be taking more courses because she's going to go on and get her master's degree in education. So this is the pleasure. And these are all kids who never had a clue that they might like this. It's like taking somebody who wants to become a drummer and saying, would you like to learn about money? No, I don't want to learn about money. Right. And then you do what you do, or the people who are in your field. And
well, it's one of those areas I don't think you necessarily, by default, would get exposure to. I mean,
not at that school.
Or even going up through secondary school, and mm-hmm. You may do biology, but you don't spend much time talking about mm-hmm. entomology mm-hmm. or the insect world.
It was for like me as a kid when I was growing up in Modesto. If you wanted to learn about entomology, you never heard the word unless you happened to read a book in the library. That was it. And the only places you could go would be UCal Davis or UCal Riverside. And those were the 2. Mm-hmm. University of Cal Berkeley, the grandfather of the entomology programs. But those were the only 3 schools where you could get entomology in California. And I got my training over at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, but knew many of the people at all 3 of those universities. But it certainly was not available when I was going to school and making my first crack at education. As a friend of mine would say, when I was done with college.
I mean, how big is the discipline throughout the country? I mean, is there a large group of scholars, or is it a relatively
small entomology, group? If you take it as a whole, is an absolutely huge concept. You have people who are into this from veterinary sciences viewpoints. You have people who are into this or studying it because of disease vector possibilities. You have all of the people who are involved with it from agricultural aspects. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions, billions of dollars protecting crops from insects mm-hmm. or thinking we're protecting crops from insects. The honeybee industry right now is a huge industry, both from bee barf on bread, like you might have had this morning. I did. I had it in my coffee. I love bee barf in coffee.
We call it honey in our house.
That's bee barf. From that aspect to the pollination aspect, all those wonderful apples that you get out of, Oregon and Washington and that stuff yep. that you get down at the local grocery store, all have to be pollinated by bees. And the bee is an invasive species here in the United States. We brought that over from Europe. That is not a native creature. And they have chased out all of our native pollinators, which is causing a problem, particularly in line of this new unknown thing that's causing a crash in the bee colony. Yeah. And then there's all the people who want to help us not have termites eat our houses down. I don't know how long you've actually lived in Florida, but if you have a house that's built in Florida, you either have termites or you will get termites, and that's just all there is to it.
Well, I have termite protection, and I hope I'm covered.
You'll get termites. I'm sorry. All those people out there, you're going to get termites.
Okay, but they'll rebuild my house for me, won't
they? Termite protection is very good. I have it on my house. I've had termites, but then my house is 83 years old, 85 years old now, and it's had more than its share of termite damage. But all of these, we get silverfish and earwigs to get under the wallpaper or get behind the paintings. If you're a stamp collector and have a $500,000 stamp, what you really don't want is a socket insect eating the glue off the back of your stamp. So insects are a huge, huge, huge thing. And in other areas, and this is something that may or may not fit with where your interests are, is a possible source of food for human beings. In other countries, other than I'm going to say the European-American concept, insects make up a fairly large portion, I don't know what percentage of it is, of food. We're the only groups of people that don't, but we have no problems with eating lobsters or shrimps.
Snails.
Snails.
Does that count?
We don't eat that many,
Yeah.
but we sure do the lobsters in, and they're nothing but giant insects. They're not really insects, but they're of that same group. Crayfish, prawns, shrimp, and that. So insects, by extension, are very high in protein. Very easy to grow multiple crops. To get a cow, if you're going to have a cow for hamburgers, you know it takes 2 or 3 years. I may be wrong on the time for a cow to get grown to the point where you can process it into hamburger meat.
Right.
Whereas you can run through 3 or 4 or 5 generations of a given insect and get the same amount of protein, only more protein, out of the same surface area of land utilized for agricultural products to feed blah, 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 blah.
Well, if we come up with a love bug burger, I think we both could be pretty rich.
Have you ever eaten a love bug? Do you have any idea how noxious they are? You have not lived in Florida long enough.
They're all over my car. That's all I know. And they seem to be flying around, and they've landed on my lips a couple times. Didn't make me hungry. No,
it's not one of those where you can't stop at one.
Okay.
Try one. You won't like it.
Okay. Why are, while we're on that, why are they so
They were
prolific?
not invented at the University of Central Florida, and I have finally heard that rumor recently.
Oh, get
this
out.
is a new one. Someone called me the other day in the bug closet, one of the reporters, and wanted to know if there was any truth to the rumor that this was a biology department or a molecular biology project that had gone bad. They'd heard that as a rumor. And I said, well, that's a shift. I said, University of Central Florida has finally arrived. I said, that used to be blamed on Gainesville.
Right.
And for years, everyone thought that the love bug came out of Gainesville, and that's not true. The love bug, the family that they belong to, has been in Florida and all over the United States since we know of both continents. But the love bug that we typically see came to us compliments of South America, and they just have worked their way north as the climates have changed. And quite frankly, it's indicative. I'm going to go way out on a limb and say that you're going to find this problem further north much faster as we continue to have this climatic change, because as the temperature changes and the humidity rises going north, the love bug's going to continue to move up. And they love our ability to grow them. We provide them with lots of automobile fumes, and they love automobile fumes. They love the heat of the fumes and the toxins, the odor of the fumes, and we heat it up along all of our road strips. And then we mow all that wonderful grass, because we must have this look like a park.
Of course, right.
I won't mention any companies that we tend to say occasion of. The beautification of Florida, we will not have tall grasses along there, so we chop all this stuff down, and it gets in there, and it gets wet, and it gets grimy, and it gets mucky, and the love bugs do us a service because they eat this stuff. The larvae eat all of this rotting vegetation.
Okay.
And they all hatch out at the same time. They're attracted to the heat coming off the cars, the exhaust fume coming off the cars, and so they sweep in towards those areas. And then the folks up there, and whoever make paint, love you because we don't wash them off. They eat holes in our paint. The car manufacturers think they're great things. So you see, it's a two-way street. It's not whether they're good or bad. It's just how you are.
I see. So what attracts them to the exhaust? I mean, are they actually taking something out of it?
Something in
or
the
just
fumes.
the smell?
Just the odor.
Okay.
I don't know whether the proper term to use is pheromone or whatever it is.
Something
but
along those lines.
It's like your wife putting her favorite perfume on to kind of say, hi there. And you go, oh, my wife just went through.
Are you wearing Midas today?
Problems you did not have in California.
Yeah, but we had the love bug out there, actually. I don't remember it being as bad, but I remember
small,
there
different
were
population, different
kind.
species.
Okay.
Yeah, but not as bad as the one that's come up. But it's been here. I think it came into first documentation was probably around 1953. It had never been described before. This does not mean it's a new species. It's a species that's been out there for centuries, thousands of years. It just never had been identified and named by anybody. Of course, having a name on an insect gives it an ability, like you have a name, you are a person.
Right.
and insects to us have to have a name, otherwise it's another bug.
Right.
But the minute it has a name, we can talk about it. Neararctica americana.
Are they related to, as they look like to me, the we used to call lightning bugs up in Pennsylvania?
No, not at all. That's a beetle.
That's a beetle. Okay.
That's a beetle. These are true flies.
Oh, they are?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You had those up in Pennsylvania, didn't you?
We used to catch those.
Another one of those metropolitan areas with insects.
Yeah. So, do insects, well, I think they obviously do, but do we track species becoming extinct? Or, I mean, I know there's been problems with the honeybee, and because of its links to ag, we're acutely aware of that, but if some other little creeper crawly is growing in numbers, are we going to become
There's
alarmed?
an awful lot of stuff that is either becoming extinct, has gone extinct, or will in the future. And this is a hard thing to tie down, because it's very difficult to put your finger on something and say it is gone. You can put your finger on some things and say we certainly haven't seen them for a few years. There are some species of butterflies that used to be found in downtown San Francisco before San Francisco became San Francisco, and they are definitely extinct because there is no habitat that they were isolated to by the nature of their species. That is one of the bramble bushes comes to mind, and that is an obvious thing. I can't think of anything in Florida at the moment that comes to mind, but on a personal level, from the work we've done with the students in the bug closet, there are several species that are new to science, meaning that they were named and described within the last 7 or 8 years, that their type locality and only known locality was that campus. And all the years that the students have been working around the campus and on the campus and up and down the spine of Florida in like habitats, these things have never been found. Unfortunately, one of them is under a 4-story parking lot, etc. And they've never been found again. One of them was named after one of our last grad students, his last Russeli, Sinopes russeli, and it was collected in a field down on the south end of campus that is now a 4-lane highway coming onto the campus, and with those wonderful green swaths for the love bugs, but they've never been collected again. So is it extinct? Have no idea. All I can say is we've never collected it any other place. It has never been collected by anybody else in the world in any of the collections in the world, and there are millions and millions and millions of specimens in collections. These were the only specimens that have ever been found. So what? Who cares? We don't know what it did. We don't know what its function was.
Right.
We don't know if it is the next step to the one that brings the staircase down. We don't know. Is it extinct? I have no idea. Is it a problem? Yes, it's a problem. Because these are the things that give us the quality of life. And one of the things you're interested, I think, in your area, and I don't know that much about all of the things that do go in your area, is what we call the quality of life. And for most folks, it seems to be having a can of our favorite beverage sitting on the sofa watching a sports program. And that's not true. But that's the general picture we have. But an awful lot of people are still interested in what's out there. They are still interested in the things that were given to us by whoever, whatever has given us these things. And we're not being very good stewards of the earth. I think we're in some very severe trouble. You're young. Your grandchildren, I think, are going to look at Granddaddy someday and say, Granddaddy, why did you let them do this? That's scary. That bothers me. I've seen it in my lifetime. I have. I just have.
Right. I think the portrait of the
That's a
couch
terrible thing
potato.
to do to you.
Tissue. Yeah, I'm not going to cry. I told Jerry I wouldn't cry this time.
Okay. Are you a crier?
No, I'm not.
Oh, crying's wonderful. You ought to do it more often.
I
cry a lot on that campus every time I'm told no.
Oh, well, yeah.
I get a lot
on
of
campus
no's.
doesn't count. You're allowed.
Can I have
you're
enough money to do this? No, we
No.
don't give you any money. Oh, and I get mad and get upset and walk off.
Let me ask you this. I mean, some of this, of course, is the hand of man, but is there a natural ebb and flow of a species, that extinction is just part of...
There is, but not on the level that we're creating it. We are upsetting the world to such a degree. We are changing the landscape to such a degree that the extinction is becoming massive. There have been apparently massive extinctions in the past. The dinosaurs are no longer here. We don't know why the dinosaurs disappeared. We don't know how long it took the dinosaurs to disappear, but we know the dinosaurs are not here. There are relatives of the dinosaurs, we call them birds, but we're now in the process of seeing a lot of our birds diminish. You can pick up the newspaper, I won't say daily, and see reports of animals that have become extinct. But there are vast lists of things that have become extinct in the last 100 years. And there are huge lists of things that are now threatened and endangered because we have just done what we've done. And that gets me off into some moral issues and some moral concepts that they'll probably bleep us all off the air if I say anything about it. But I'm not sure we have the right to do some of these things, but we do it. And I don't know of any way of controlling it.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about quality of life, and I think, I mean, as an economist, that's something that we are interested in, but it's also something that in many ways is difficult to measure. It's easier to measure income.
Well, I got a good
prices.
question for you coming up, and I might as well ask it right now. And you're going to say, no, wait, some other time. But as an economist, your whole premise, I think, is built on a growing population and a growing, quote, economy. What happens if mankind all of a sudden looks around and says, yeah, we have to do something about this. Yes, we have to allow population growth to stop growing and go to a hold your own phase, or even find a way to begin to let the population by attrition decline